Yeah.
Hi everyone, I am Hannah and I'm a Research Communications Officer for the MS Society. I'm here to talk a bit about octopus, as I'm sure you're all waiting for, but I'm also going to share a bit of insight into the research that we're doing to stop MS, and a bit of science behind MS and the latest thinking as well. Just for some background, the MS Society, we are the largest charitable funder of MS research in the UK. At the moment, we've got over £20 million invested in around 50 projects at the moment. So I definitely can't talk about all of them today, but I will do my best to give you a snapshot of what we are funding at the moment. So as I said, I'm just going to give you a really quick tour about the science behind MS to get us started. A lot of you might know all of this already, so I'm really sorry if it's something that you already know, but it will help for some of us to understand some of the slides and the research that I'll talk about soon. So the biology of MS then. So MS is a condition that affects the central nervous system. So that's our brain, our spinal cord, and our eyes. And if we took a really, really close look at the nervous system, you'd see that it's made of billions and billions of things called nerve cells, and they all look a bit like the diagram on the right-hand side there. So what do these nerve cells actually do? Well, they're responsible for sending messages around our whole body, and they all communicate with each other, and they make pretty much everything that we do possible, from walking, thinking, talking, or breathing. If our nerves weren't there to deliver the messages around our body, we wouldn't be able to do that. And a really important part of our nerve cells that I'm sure everyone will have heard of is a special fatty substance called myelin. And that's a substance that wraps around our nerve fibers, a bit like a Swiss roll or some lagging around a pipe. It's the yellow section on the diagram that looks a bit like a hula hoop. But they are a really, really vital part of our nerves to keep them functioning well. And there's a couple of reasons the myelin is really important. Firstly, it acts a bit like the plastic coating around an electrical wire. So it protects the nerve from damage. So if you imagine inside the plastic coating of a wire, you've got all the electrical wires inside it, if that makes sense. And so it protects the nerve, but it also ensures that all the messages that are traveling around the body can move really quickly and smoothly from nerve cell to nerve cell. But in MS, it's this myelin itself, so this lovely protective coating around our nerves, that gets damaged. And so I'll explain a little bit about how it becomes damaged. So throughout our body, we also have networks of blood vessels, so our veins and our arteries, and they all deliver really important nutrients to all of our body and our tissues, including the brain and the spinal cord. And within our blood, we also have immune cells that circulate, and they patrol our body and they look for things that shouldn't be there, like a virus or bacteria. So things that make us unwell and that we don't want in our body. So normally immune cells are great, but in MS, for some reason, immune cells mistakenly attack the myelin for something that shouldn't be there. So they think that it's something like a virus or bacteria. So they actually attack and they damage and destroy myelin. And so as we know, myelin is really important for sending messages around the body. So when the myelin's damaged, it means that those messages are disrupted, or they can just travel a lot slower than they normally would. And this can happen anywhere in the brain or the spinal cord. So depending on where it is, you could have a variety of symptoms. And as we all know, they can be quite different in different people. But our bodies are quite amazing, and they usually have a natural ability to put myelin back on the nerve. So we have cells that can make new myelin and repair the damage. So that's why if in somebody who has relapsing MS, they might see their symptoms come and go because the myelin is damaged, but then it can also be repaired by the body. But as we get older, everybody loses their ability to repair myelin as well, but particularly in people with MS. Over time, they lose their ability to repair myelin. And so what this means is eventually when the body can't repair the myelin anymore, the nerve essentially loses its nice protective coating. So the nerve fibre itself can then be exposed and is vulnerable to damage. And unfortunately, eventually the nerve cells can die. And what that means is that messages can't get through and can't transmit around the body like they usually can. And so that's when symptoms may no longer come and go, but gradually you see a progression of symptoms. And so you might be diagnosed with progressive MS. But as I'm sure most people know as well, some people will have this from the beginning of their condition and might be diagnosed with primary progressive MS. So let's have a little more of a look at what progression actually is and what causes it. So this is where I guess the research and the science is coming into its own. We still don't really fully understand progression. So there's lots and lots of researchers across the globe who are working away trying to really understand what's happening in the body. So progression, when progression occurs, it's because there's some damage to the nerves themselves. So researchers have recently identified a combination of things that they think could cause it. And so that means we're also now identifying things that we could potentially target by treatments or new drugs. So it's a combination of a few different things. So as we've already said, myelin-making cells might no longer be able to damage the repaired myelin, so the nerve is vulnerable. But secondly, also, when the myelin is damaged, it can leave behind some debris and some toxins that can build up around the nerves, and that can cause some damage and increase inflammation. So that's a way that we could potentially develop new treatments, is finding ways that we can clear up that debris or toxin so it's not lingering around the nerve. And then finally, we also think that a part of the nerve that creates the energy for it to survive is damaged. And without energy, nerves can't survive, just like we wouldn't if we didn't have food. It means the nerve wouldn't be able to function properly. So over time, what we think is it's a combination of the myelin being damaged, the toxins that are left behind, and the nerve not being able to create enough energy to survive, all contribute potentially to the damage in the nerves and the buildup of progression. But we're learning more and more about this every day so that we can develop some treatments, and I'll talk about some potentials very shortly. So also in the headlines very recently, some of you might have noticed there's been some progress in understanding what causes MS. So there's a few things that we've already known for a little while. Essentially, we know that there isn't one thing that causes MS, but it's a mixture of things. So we know that there are over 200 genes potentially that are linked with increasing someone's risk of getting MS. We know there are certain environmental factors that might increase your risk of getting MS. So if you have a low level of vitamin D, or if you've been exposed to certain infections. And we also know certain lifestyle factors can increase your risk of MS. So MS and smoking is particularly linked to MS and a risk of increased progression, and obesity too. So I'll say a bit more about infections, because some of you probably have seen in the news in the last month or so, lots of news about the Epstein-Barr virus, or EBV, and it's linked to MS. So we've known for quite a while that the virus could be linked to MS, but some new research has been published very recently in the last month, which is the strongest evidence that we've seen yet that suggests there might be a causal link between EBV and MS. So the virus is actually really, really common. It's in around 95% of us will already have it in our bodies. It's something that once you have it, it stays in your body for life. It lives in some of your immune cells. But for most of us, it's asymptomatic. You might never know that you've had it or have it. But in some people, it can cause glandular fever. But what we have discovered is that it has a strong causal link with MS. What we need to work out next is what EBV does then once it's in our body to trigger MS, because if 95% of us have it in our bodies anyway, why do some people then go on to develop MS and some don't? We don't know that yet. The next step and the key, I think, to understanding this is potentially developing a vaccine for EBV. And only then we could really see whether the rate of MS decreases as EBV is under control. But there is actually already a trial that started into a vaccine. It's very, very early stage research, so we're still quite a way away from seeing its effect. But once there is a vaccine, we might be able to see if it could potentially prevent MS, but it's very early on in this research. So a bit about how far we've come then. So we have come a really, really long way in the world of understanding and treating MS. The progress that we've made in the last 2 decades is quite remarkable, and it's come a long way compared to other neurological conditions. So 25 years ago, we didn't really have any treatments for MS. We didn't understand the causes of MS or how to manage the symptoms. But today we've got around 20 disease-modifying treatments, which, although most are for relapsing MS, we still have made some progress, at least in the last 2 years, with a couple of treatments available for some people with progressive MS. And we have a much better understanding now of the things that could make people more at risk of developing MS. But we don't want to stop there. We are nowhere near done. We've got lots more work to do. Everybody in this call will know there's still way too many people with MS that don't have any options to have any treatments, or any treatments that could slow down the progression of their condition. So our fundamental goal is to find treatments for everybody living with MS, so that nobody has to worry about their symptoms getting worse or their disease progressing. And there are 3 critical things that researchers are working on at the moment, and they've identified that could potentially and hopefully stop everyone's MS progressing. So those 3 ways that we think would stop MS. So firstly, we want to stop immune cells from attacking myelin in the first place, so by preventing the immune system going after the myelin. And as I said just a second ago, there's been huge progress in this area of research already. Most of the DMTs licensed for MS work in this way, by stopping in some way the immune system from attacking the myelin. We used to think this would only work for people with relapsing MS, where immune attacks were really common. But some recent trials have shown that actually in early progressive MS, some immune attacks are still causing damage. So this type of treatment could help more people. So for example, we've got ocrelizumab and siponimod now that are available that work in this way. The second strategy is finding ways to promote myelin repair and the replacement of damaged myelin. So researchers want to find ways to so we have cells in our body that can create new myelin, as I said before, but for some reason eventually they stop to work as well. So researchers are looking at ways they can kickstart and almost rejuvenate these cells so that they start making myelin again and putting it back on the nerves. And the final way we think we can help stop MS is looking at the nerves themselves, because we know that disability in MS isn't just about myelin damage, it's about the damage that can happen to the nerves. So to stop progression, we need to protect the nerves and make them as strong and as resilient as possible. So researchers are looking at ways to give them more energy, and as I said earlier, to take away some of the debris that's left behind if the myelin's been damaged. So to really reduce the likelihood that the nerve could eventually die. And our vision essentially is that a combination of these 3 strategies will be able to help us slow or stop progression. And I really mean it when researchers all the way across the world are working on these 3 strategies. It's not just us alone in the UK funding these studies, but we really understand so much more about these 3 mechanisms that could help. And even some of them are already in trials, which I'll talk to you about now. So I'll take you through one trial for each way that we hope we can stop MS. So the first one